This episode is brought to you by ARX. You want to be a successful strength training studio owner. The problem is you aren't able to deliver the safest, most efficient and effective workouts, making it harder for you to attract and retain clients, which makes you feel frustrated. I understand that it can be difficult to differentiate your business without the right tools. ARX's breakthrough adaptive resistance technology uses patented motorized resistance and computer software to give you and your clients the perfect workout every single time. BioFit founder John Zarbok says that ARX is clearly the superior tool to deliver the exercise stimulus. My clients are seeing insane improvements in weeks, not months. I could not fathom running my business without ARX. So here's how you get started. Number one, go to arxfit.com/HOB to get $500 off your ARX machines. Number two, book a call with the ARX sales team. And number three, learn how ARX can help you grow your strength training business. Go to arxfit.com/HOB so you can stop struggling to attract and retain clients and start to grow your strength training business with confidence. Lawrence Still here, and welcome back to highintensitybusiness.com, the podcast where we discuss high-intensity strength training and provide you with the tools, the tactics, and strategies to help you grow your strength training business. Before we get into today's episode, I want to let you know that over on the blog post for this episode, you can download a free PDF called How to Attract Great Personal Trainers to Your Strength Training Business. So you can go find that over at highintensitybusiness.com and search for episode 352. Are you struggling to grow your strength training business? If so, join HIT Business Membership, where we provide how-to guides from successful studio owners, a monthly virtual happy hour with experts, Q&As, forum community, private coaching from myself, and lots more resources to help you grow your strength training business with confidence. You can join over at highintensitybusiness.com/membership. This is episode 352, and I'm really excited about this because it's the start of a series that I am recording with the one and only Tim Ryan. And the title of this series is going to be High Intensity Training Fundamentals. We've got a whole bunch of concepts that Tim teaches trainers and students through mentoring and workshops, which we're going to go through in a logical order. And I'm just really excited to go through this. Obviously, my guest today is Tim Ryan. Tim is a master super slow instructor, owner of Strong Life Personal Training in Barrington, Illinois. He has over 40 years of experience. It's the caffeine, that Tim, in the health and fitness field, operating various personal training businesses, mentoring exercise instructors and taking part in exercise equipment design. Tim has earned various national fitness certifications from ACSM, ACE, and the Super Slow Exercise Guild. Welcome, Tim. Really appreciate you doing this.
Hi, Lawrence. Thanks for having me.
Good to see you, and I appreciate your time. As I said, I'm excited to do this because obviously, having done 350 odd episodes, we've covered lots of facets of high intensity training. There's always more to cover, but I think it's always fascinating to get a refresh on the fundamentals from someone who's just been in the industry forever, been through the Super Slow Guild, learn all about high intensity training, because I think it's really important to be reminded about some of these really key principles. And I know, as we were talking before, everyone's got their own spin on Ken's super slow training, and I'm sure your perspective has evolved over time with your experience, but it's still very valuable to get your perspective on the real basics, because I think that really helps inform my listeners and frankly myself. And I'm excited to have discussion with you about that. So we've got obviously a load of bullets here. We're going to see how we go, right? That's hence why we're doing 3 podcasts.
Yeah.
And we're kicking off with general exercise guidelines. So what does this mean? And let's take it away.
All right. Well, first off, when this whole subject of high intensity training, I really associate, the primary person that developed this and popularized it was Arthur Jones of the Nautilus fame, inventor of Nautilus equipment, and later on, an inventor of MEDX machines and the MEDX technology, and, particularly the medical machines and so forth. So, Arthur Jones was really the driving force behind this. And he started really promoting these concepts before Nautilus even started. He, probably a couple of years before Nautilus ever came to market, Arthur was publishing articles in various athletic journals and bodybuilding magazines, Ironman magazine, and I think there was one called Scholastic Coach and Athletic Training Journal, things of that nature. And he was, pushing these concepts. And, Arthur was a very, forceful personality and a very, motivated guy. And he, believes so strongly in his principles. And, initially he was teaching principles that could improve the outcomes and improve the results from strength training and weight training. And he strongly believed that the way that people were training at the time was kind of unproductive, not unproductive in the sense that it didn't work, but that people were spending far too many hours in the gym, far too many days in the gym, doing things, with poor form, poor technique, excessively fast speed of movement, and just generally doing things in a way that is not optimal. So Arthur always sought to, find the, absolute best way of training to get the best results, to get stronger and more, muscular development in the most efficient way possible. And, when you realize that, you also come to learn that his Nautilus machines were really just a logical outgrowth of that, meaning that in addition to the training principles, Arthur saw that the equipment available at the time was just, very, very left a lot to be desired, and that it was not really matched up very well to the human body, didn't really stimulate the muscles as well as he felt they could be stimulated. And so, he sort of developed the Nautilus machines out of necessity to make the training more effective and to more effectively engage the muscles and train them through a full range of motion and maintain, a balanced resistance through the range of motion and all of those things. And, I believe even that when he developed those machines, he wasn't necessarily deciding to start an equipment company and start a new business. He kind of was developing machines for himself and for his, research and to train people. And, people started finding out about these machines. He would talk about them in some of these articles, and people would visit him and see his, contraptions and things, and started wanting them. And, so he almost got pulled into developing a company because the things, his prototypes and his machines that he was building for himself became popular and people were demanding them. So at any rate,
I had no idea that actually it was almost accidental. I thought there's more intent. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was really, interesting because, it was just one of those things that he felt like, well, if everybody wants these machines, maybe I need to start a company. So at any rate, to make a long story short, I really associate these principles, these high intensity training principles, with Arthur Jones first and foremost. Now, at the time, he was calling these the Nautilus training principles. And in fact, his first kind of more formal books, if you want to call them, were Nautilus Training Bulletin #1 and Nautilus Training Bulletin #2. And in these books, he really sort of fleshed out and developed and taught these principles that he was espousing. So, for many years, this was simply called the Nautilus training principles. And most everybody that was doing this type of training was using Nautilus equipment. And again, this is back, in the early 1970s, mid 1970s. And there wasn't the wide range of equipment that we have available today. So people were using Nautilus machines to do this type of training. And of course, Ellington Darden, who worked for Nautilus and wrote a lot of the popularized Nautilus books, and he became very associated with this. So, but essentially, Darden was promoting and teaching Jones' principles and philosophies. Okay, so both of those men were very influential in developing this and popularizing it and teaching it and so forth. And for the most part, it was done on Nautilus equipment. And then I think what began to happen is, sports teams began to purchase the Nautilus machines. The Miami Dolphins football team were one of the first ones to get the equipment and train. And I believe it was in 1973 or 1974 where they went undefeated in the season and they won the Super Bowl undefeated. And that was the year after they began using Nautilus machines. So I'm not saying that the Nautilus training was the reason they did that, but the way sports works is if one team does something and they become very successful while doing that, everybody wants to know the secret and everybody wants to copy them. And
even though the losing team could have done the exact same protocol, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So but at any rate, just the way these things work, that was one of the things that really popularized the Nautilus equipment. I think then like the Cincinnati Reds baseball team and Cincinnati Bengals and one by one, just sports and athletic teams began getting Nautilus equipment and training this way. So that added to the popularity. Eventually what happened is over the years, and particularly as, people from all over the country, all over the world started training like this, inevitably they started training with other types of equipment and, recognizing too that this was not just something that was applicable to Nautilus machines, but it would be applicable to free weights. It would be applicable to body weight exercises. It would be applicable to other brands of equipment that, eventually became developed. So there were certainly things about the Nautilus machines that were unique and obviously enhanced the effectiveness of the training. But these principles could be applied to any type of strength training exercise, no matter what the modality or the tool is. So I think that's when things started sort of becoming high intensity training rather than just simply the Nautilus training principles, is that the high intensity training became more of a just a generic term for these principles. Okay. So with that kind of setting the stage, when we kind of want to talk about the general training principles, first off, obviously, over the course of this series, we're going to get very involved in the different individual specific principles and techniques and philosophies of this. But when we talk about the general principles, we're really talking about those key core things that sort of outline the philosophy and outline the style of training. Okay. So, first off, and again, at the time, as Arthur Jones developed it, they were originally talking about, number one, training 3 days per week. All right. Typically on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, but, 3 times a week training. Now, very quickly, people began to realize that was too much, particularly at the intensity level and so forth that they were recommending and training people and so forth. But at any rate,
I'm just curious on that. Did you notice that the problems occurred more in the older demographic? Because I'm guessing maybe some of the younger guys or girls who train a failure 3 days a week potentially could get away with it, or there was less obvious symptoms of overtraining, let's say, versus older demographics. I'm just curious what the zeitgeist was like in that sense.
Yeah, right. So I would say what initially happened is a lot of the test subjects that Arthur Jones was using were bodybuilders. They were very genetically blessed people and so forth. And one of the most notable ones was a guy named Casey Viator, who Casey at the time, while training under Arthur Jones with these principles, at age 19, he won I believe Mr. Universe contest or Mr. America, one of those two. But he became like the youngest person to win the contest, and he also won like every single best body part award of that contest, training under Jones. So, and people will recognize his name because later on, Casey was also the test subject of the Colorado project. I think it was called the Colorado Project.
Colorado Experiment, yeah.
A Colorado Experiment, right? Yeah. Okay. So at any rate, a lot of the people that Jones was using to test these principles and so forth were these really genetically blessed people, these bodybuilders and athletes and things like this. So I think one of the things is those people could maybe get away with this because they had such incredible genetics and their body developed so easily and, things like that. Whereas
enhancing drugs as well, right? Were probably helping with some of that recovery.
Yeah. I mean, now from everything that I've ever heard was, Arthur Jones personally was very against, steroids and those types of drugs. And he would, as the story goes, forbid any of his people to use those things. But whether they did or not,
it's still a very controversial topic, isn't it? Because I've heard lots of people say that Casey Viator never touched them. Other people claim he did. It's like a constant debate.
Yeah, I mean, I would say he probably, Casey in particular, he probably did at some point in his career. Whether he did it while he was with Jones or not is, another story. But yeah, there's been some controversy, and particularly the incredible results that he got with the Colorado experiment and how quickly he built muscle. Everybody tries to attribute that to steroids, but who knows? But for certain, a lot of these principles were being tested on, clearly genetically blessed people. So they probably got away with training 3 days a week and still making progress from that. But yeah, when you started applying things to the general public, that was something that I would say two things. One, for the average person, just a man, woman off the street, whatever, coming into a fitness center with a line of Nautilus equipment and sort of going through the circuit, we know that the age-old problem with most people is that they don't train intensely enough. Okay, no matter what we do, no matter how good our equipment is, no matter how good our principles and coaching is, the fact is most people don't want to work hard, so they typically have a self-limiting factor that they will only put up with so much. They will only put up with so much, discomfort from the training and intensity and so forth. And they will essentially kind of prematurely shut down because they've had enough, not necessarily because that's the absolute most they could have done. So I think with that group of people, they probably got away with training 3 times a week because they just simply were not pushing at that ultimate level and getting so extremely fatigued and so forth that they couldn't recover from it, so. But what I noticed personally with myself and what I noticed with colleagues of mine and, so forth, that we would train together and train each other. Yes, 3 times a week we were not recovering from that, because I noticed, in fact, quick side note, when I first started getting into this, when I got my first job at a Nautilus type fitness center, I became so enthusiastic about these principles and, reading all of Jones's articles and the training bulletins and reading Arthur or Ellington Darden's books and that type of stuff. I mean, I became so enthusiastic about this and so into it. In fact, that is what got me to go to college and get a degree in exercise science. Ultimately, my dream at the time was I wanted to work for Nautilus.
So I'm a bodybuilder. That's interesting.
Well, not necessarily as a test subject, but I mean, I kind of just had this fantasy at the time that I was going to get my college degree and study exercise and get my education, and then I was going to try to get a job at Nautilus and be a part of this, But so at any rate, I at the time was obviously telling all of my friends about this and trying to be an evangelist for this type of training and the Nautilus equipment. And I would tell everybody how much better this is and how much more effective it is. And you don't need to be in the gym for 2 hours a day, 6 days a week, and all this kind of stuff. And, obviously people, even today, they're skeptical of those types of claims. So people were skeptical of that, and they kind of took a wait and see approach to what happened to me when I trained this way, And I can say that, the first year or so, or maybe longer, of me training this way, I personally did not get very good results. In fact, I think, maybe even my physique might have suffered a little bit. And, my friends would kind of start to rib me and tease me that, hey, this Nautilus training is really working for you, whatever. I don't see anything happening, So, but, as I look back on it, I think the reason for that was overtraining, because I was training 3 days a week. I was, one of my coworkers would take me through a workout and push me, and we'd be training, completely all out and full on, 100% intensity, full muscle failure, and, advanced techniques, doing, rep assists or forced reps at the end, and breakdown training, and, all of
every
these
workout
things.
3 times a week.
Well, yeah. And because again, we're reading this in some of those books, and we're reading, Ellington Darden's books, and he's got these different principles in there, and you want to try them all, so, doing all of those things, there's no doubt I was stimulating, muscular growth. I just wasn't allowing for it because, being overtrained and not recovering to try to come back, do a workout on Monday and come back on Wednesday and do that type of thing again. So eventually I started to get it figured out, and back down the training, obviously switched to like twice a week training, and eventually down the road started realizing that all these advanced techniques, while certainly they can be helpful in certain circumstances, but you don't want to be just applying these all the time, because it is just too much, and it kind of goes beyond what is necessary to stimulate and kind of really get into interrupting your recovery ability. So but at any rate, whether we're talking about the original 3 times a week or twice a week, and then obviously we know that people today, some people only do this once a week, and, different things. But the general principle would be is that you need to train with a frequency that is going to allow you to, number one, adequately stimulate the gains that you're after, but then balance that with the recovery. Okay. So that would be number one. And then, secondly, this whole concept was promoted pretty heavily as sort of a 30-minute workout. And, that's obviously, a good, strong, valid concept. I think at the time, the Nautilus principles were recommending doing like 12 to maybe 15 different exercises in a workout. And that's another thing we learned, that's just way overkill. That's too many different exercises all in one session, and trying to do too much in one session. So that's obviously changed over the years and kind of come down a little bit. And again, depending on who you're talking to, some people maybe only do 2 or 3 exercises in a workout. And I think most of us with training businesses and working with the general public, somewhere around 8 different exercises in a workout is, something that's going to be adequate to cover all the bases, but also, get recovery and not do too much. So you've got the training frequency, you've got the number of exercises in the workout. These were full body workouts. Okay. Arthur really strongly believed in full body training and not doing split routines and, that type of thing. So full body workouts. And the next thing would be the speed of movement during the exercise. Arthur talked a lot about slowing things down, using slow and controlled movements, and not using momentum, to lift the weight, and lifting in a controlled fashion, and so forth. Which again was quite a bit different than what everybody else was doing at the time. It's quite a bit different than what people do today. So Nautilus, with these principles, recommended the famous 2-4 protocol: 2 seconds up, 4 seconds down, sort of an approach. And certainly compared to the way most people train, that's a very slow, controlled movement. Most people in the gym, if you've been in a public gym anytime recently, I mean, they lift the weight about as fast as they can pump it back and forth, and it's like, maybe if it's a 1-1, 1 second up, 1 second down, that would be, but I think some people are even faster than that. So 2-4, what Nautilus was recommending, that was certainly a slow and controlled movement. It brought the speed down. It enabled more control of the resistance. There was less bouncing and jerking and things of that, and that was very helpful. We know that as years went by, the focus became on even slower movement than that, and we'll probably get into that at another time. But super slow, came on the scene and was developed, and so forth. And there's even some slower movements and different protocols that are in use. But the main principle, whether it's 2-4, whether it's 5-5, whether it's 10-10, like super slow, the key is that slow and controlled movement, and try to use good form, good technique, no jerking the weights, no bouncing the weights around, all of that kind of stuff. Try to do it all under, smooth control, with the control of your muscles, without momentum and things like that.
This episode is brought to you by ARX. These are the most intense exercise machines I've ever used. I remember how fast a pull-down exercise took me to muscular failure and beyond. On the final negative or eccentric excursion, my tank was practically empty, but the adaptive resistance enabled me to continue to perform work until the predetermined end of the set. This experience was very profound and made me realize how effective ARX is in helping clients reach a high level of intensity in their workouts and ultimately produce the best results. I also love how ARX measures and tracks range of motion, rep cadence, total output and time, and more with real-time audio and visual feedback. These features are powerful sales and retention tools to help you convert and keep more clients. As a listener of the High Intensity Business podcast, ARX is offering you $500 off your machines. Just go to arxfit.com/HIB to book a call with the ARX sales team to learn how ARX can revolutionize and grow your fitness business. Again, go to arxfit.com/HIB, and now back to the episode.
And then kind of continuing out, there was things relative to just the overall other aspects of exercise. So, what we've been talking about obviously addresses the strength training and some of those general procedures, but some people may not realize that the Arthur Jones teachings, Ellington Darden's teachings, the Nautilus principles also contained a philosophy that by training in the way that, this is espousing, that you would not need to do separate programs of sort of aerobic training or cardiovascular training, nor would you have to do a separate program of stretching or flexibility work. Okay, the claims being made were that this one Nautilus program could give you maximal strength and conditioning, of all of your muscle groups, would also give you full-on cardiovascular fitness and flexibility, all in the one program. And they really promoted this concept that the Nautilus high-intensity training was an all-encompassing exercise program that gave you everything that you could need or accomplish through exercise from the one program. So it not only greatly reduced the amount of time needed for strength training, but it also eliminated the need to do other types of exercise, such as running or bicycling or aerobic cardio type training, or stretching and flexibility programs. Okay, and the way this was envisioned was that not only doing the strength training the way it's been described, but doing it in a way where you had very little rest between exercises, that you would essentially go bang, 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 bang through the program, and you do one exercise and train to muscular failure, 100% intensity. As soon as you're done with that, you go to the next machine and you get on and go, and you not only are simultaneously training your muscular system at a high level, but you are engaging the heart and lungs, your breathing rate, your heart rate would be very elevated and so forth, and you'd be getting the cardiovascular conditioning through that. But then also, due to the design of the machines being a very thorough full range of motion, allowing you to have resistance all the way into the fully stretched position, and then going through the full range of motion to the contraction point, and getting that full range of motion from stretching and contracting through that would be working to enhance your flexibility. Okay, so this became something that you train with 100% intensity, you train to full muscular failure on each exercise, you immediately go to the next exercise, and start and not allow that downtime in between, and you're doing the full range of motion of the machines, and getting all of this in one. And there was, besides the anecdotal and besides the claim, there were definitely studies and evidence that promoted that this definitely did work and give you all of those three benefits. Probably the most notable one was the West Point project. That's where I got that project name from. So it was a Colorado experiment with Casey, but the West Point project was something where in the United States at the West Point Military Academy, Nautilus went in and sort of provided the equipment and provided the training principles for this method to be studied. And they took the West Point football team, basically the athletes, and they put them through I think it was a 6 or 8 week Nautilus training program. And the way I understand it is the sort of researchers at the West Point Academy kind of oversaw the research and conducted the research, but Arthur Jones had sent some employees from Nautilus to supervise the Nautilus training to make sure that it was done right, type of thing. So anyway, they took the subjects through this program, and they just completely crushed these people. They put them to the point where, incredible intensity levels very quickly from machine to machine, and just completely crush these people. And they have things where their heart rates were like 200 during the training, or 180 to 210 range, and were sustained and elevated throughout the workout. And they just really took these people through incredible workouts and pushed them. And of course they were athletes and they were so forth. But during that study, they increased the strength. I don't remember all the statistics, but the strength increase over the course of 6 or 8 weeks was something like 63% increase in strength. There was cardiovascular testing, where at the time, the way they measured the cardiovascular performance was a 2-mile run, the time to run 2 miles. And they took the average subject took 2 minutes off their 2-mile run time, even though they had not been practicing or doing running during this time. They were just doing the Nautilus training. So they greatly improved their 2-mile run time, and all the measurements of flexibility were greatly improved too. So, in this study, there was, very strong advances in all 3 of those categories. So there's no doubt that it works. And I'm sure in later sessions we'll get into more, because I will be addressing sort of the aerobic cardiovascular training concept in relation to this pole intensity philosophy. And we'll get into that a little deeper. But, as far as these general principles go, that was part of it, that, you train in this way. So the last thing, and I probably should have referred to this maybe a little earlier, but at the time, going back to this 2-4 protocol and the 12 to 15 exercises, it was also recommended that you do like 8 to 12 repetitions of a weight. Okay, so the idea would be to find a weight that you can lift at least 8 times before you reach failure, but you should not be able to lift it more than 12 times. You should have achieved momentary failure within that 8 to 12 rep range. So at any rate,
why was that? Was that determined by, the time under load, the target time under load that he was looking for with 8 to 12 on a 2-4 cadence?
Yeah.
This is signature time under load. Yeah.
In terms of what they may have rationalized about that, I'm not exactly sure. One of the things that was popular at the time, there was one of the first early strength training, weight training studies was by 2 researchers named Delorme and Watkins. And this Delorme and Watkins study, they found that, they were testing bench press performance and different protocols on the bench press, different amount of sets on the bench press and different things like that. And they had found that the group doing like 10 reps got the best, some of the best results or whatever. And I think they may have, without looking back at the study, they may have done groups where had lower rep ranges and higher rep ranges and some, in the mid range. But they had kind of, one of the outcomes of that study, that they were recommending that 10 reps was sort of the optimal type of range. So for all I know, that was just popular at the time. Everybody, was doing like 3 sets of 10 reps on everything, So with Nautilus, they might have, that 8 to 12, obviously 10 is right in the middle. So they might have come up with this 8 to 12 just to sort of optimize a range around this, perceived ideal of 10 reps. But it could have been something else. I don't know where they came up with it. So,
okay.
So at any rate, I mean, that kind of outlines the key things that Nautilus was recommending, and also recognize that was quite a bit a radical departure from what most people were doing at the time, because most people were going into the gym, doing multiple sets of every one of their weight training exercises, 3, 4, 5 sets, doing multiple different exercises per body part, working out for 2 hours a day, split routines, 6 days a week, all that kind of stuff. And then separately from that, they were doing, cardiovascular training programs, running and biking and different things, and doing stretching and everything. And it was just a crazy amount of exercise that people were, doing in the traditional type of approach. So when Arthur and Nautilus came out with these principles, all of it was a radical departure, saying, no, you just need to train for 30 minutes. You don't need to do all those sets. You can train to failure. And if you train to failure, you don't need any more sets than that. And if you, move slow and controlled and use good form, it's going to enhance the training. And, move quickly from machine to machine, you're going to get your cardiovascular effect. And our equipment is so effective that you're going to get stretching, and flexibility built into the training. And, so all of this was very radically different. And, not only did Nautilus and some of these studies and projects and whatnot really demonstrate the effectiveness of this. But of course, all of the sports teams that were at this point now using this type of equipment and protocol, and people being very successful with athletes training this way. So it became so popular that then obviously it spilled in and to the general fitness community, and fitness centers and health clubs popping up and having Nautilus equipment and having circuits that they would go through this Nautilus routine. So,
do you know, I'm biting my tongue at so many points because I want to ask questions, but then I'm looking at all the bullets. Which, by the way, this is going to turn into like a 50-part series, Tim. I'm just warning you, because we've not even got off the first bullet, which is fine because we all love the details. And it's just really great to get a refresh on the history of this stuff and how it all came to be. But yeah, I'm biting my tongue because I'm looking at the bullets going, okay, yeah, we'll talk about that then, and we'll talk about this then. And we'll you know, this isn't obviously the time to go into real detail on some of these nuances. So what do you have remaining on the general exercise guidelines? I suppose it'd be great if by about 10:02 we spend 5 minutes just summarizing the rest. Yeah.
Well,
summarizing that particular bullet. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think as far as the general things, I mean, I could get more nuanced on things, but I think a lot of these things are going to be fleshed out as we talk about more other principles and specific concepts. But, I think a good thing to probably talk about right now is, sort of an expansion of the general principles, but moving into the area of, what is the general philosophy behind this, or what are the advantages or benefits of this? And some of it I've already kind of alluded to, but, in other words, if you were talking to somebody, or particularly as a facility owner or as a trainer, and you were trying to talk to somebody about what you do and how you train people, and you wanted to sell them on the advantages of your program or how you're different than the trainer down the street or whatever, we would want to be capable of explaining to people, what is it about this that makes it better than other types of training, or why is it more advantageous? Why should you consider training this way? So I always like to focus on a couple different key areas, and that would be that, first off, I try to convey to people that all the principles that we use, and even the equipment we use, and everything we do with the facility and the approach of training, is we are trying to optimize and get the best possible results from our exercise. And we're trying to do it in such a way that is most safe, that you would become least likely to become injured, that it will be highly effective at producing the results and achieving total fitness and strength and muscular development and whatever, and that it would also be time efficient. Okay, so kind of those keys of safe, effective, and time efficient. So then from there, okay, so what is it about this that makes it safer? All right. Well, we know that when you use slow and controlled movements, and you're not jerking and bouncing and using momentum and so forth, those slow and controlled movements are safer because it reduces the forces applied against the body, and it reduces the impact forces. And generally it's that force, or more specifically excessive force, that ultimately injures you. Any time that you become injured, other than burning or electrocution, but any type of physical injury occurs when your body has been exposed to a level of force that is greater than the structural strength of that body part. Okay, so we know that force has the potential to injure you if it becomes too great. So, the old principle in physics that force equals mass times acceleration. So the quicker you accelerate a weight, the more force that you can introduce into that. And yes, the weight itself, or the mass, is a factor in there. But a very heavy weight can be moved very safely if you do it in a sensible fashion, and you do it with slow and controlled movement. So the exercise becomes safer because you're reducing the force against the body and making it less likely that you will encounter excessive force that could injure you. Okay. The effectiveness. Yeah, go ahead.
I said, love it. Yeah.
Yeah. So the effectiveness part of the equation, well, you want to do everything possible to stimulate the body, because this whole process is a stimulation, right? We're trying to stimulate the body to change, and the body is going to produce those changes in response to that stimulus as a form of an adaptation. Okay, so when it comes to stimulating the body or making the exercise most effective, you want to do things that are going to accomplish what the body requires for that. So we know that it's highly related to intensity, highly related to generating muscular tension, applying that load to the muscles, creating that tension or that strain on the muscle fibers and the bones and connective tissues, the fatigue that occurs through the workout, as the performance of the exercise, and you bring yourself deeper and deeper into those levels of fatigues. That's part of the stimulation process. So going slow and controlled not only makes it safer, but it reduces momentum and it keeps the load applied to the muscles more effectively. It prevents sort of unloading or offloading the resistance from the muscles, causing the muscles to work harder to move the resistance through the range of motion. The tension level on the muscle is higher. That strain on the muscle fibers is higher with slower and controlled movements. And then the intensity, working to push yourself to deeper levels of intensity, getting more fatigued, a concept again that we'll get to later, but this idea of inroad or momentarily weakening your muscles and depleting their strength. That is all done more effectively by not only slow and controlled movement, but intensity training to muscular failure, ensuring by training to muscular failure, ensuring that you've involved as many muscle fibers as possible and activated those motor units and muscle fibers into action. Again, with the equipment, making it more effective, keeping a better range of motion, keeping the load on the muscles, having a balanced resistance that matches the muscles' strength capabilities at each position. All of this is going to making it more effective. Okay. And then lastly, the efficiency standpoint, when you do all the things that I've just described and alluded to, it becomes more effective at stimulating the changes. It becomes a more potent stimulus, and therefore you don't need as much of it. You've accomplished the stimulation process in a quicker amount of time with less total exercise, and you get the efficiency factor accomplished because all of the quality improvements that this protocol is making in terms of enhancing the stimulus, it's really, I tell people it's the same as, like, let's say you go to a doctor and you have some sort of an illness or condition that he prescribes a medication for. All right. Well, he's going to provide a prescription of a dosage of a medication that matches the potency of that drug he's prescribing. Okay. And there's that precise doses of how much of this medication do you need to produce the effect. All right. Well, we know that different types of medication have a stronger impact. Even something taking like a Tylenol, you can have regular strength Tylenol or you can have extra strength Tylenol. Okay. What it is that it's a more concentrated, higher dose pill. Extra strength Tylenol is a higher dosage than, regular strength. So I describe to people that this type of training is a more potent dosage. It's a more potent effect, that it produces the results with less of the, drug analogy here, less of the drug or less of the the intervention, you don't need as much of it to produce the effect. Okay, so when you do everything right, when you improve the quality of the exercise in everything you do, you simply don't need as much of it because the stimulus is accomplished more efficiently. Okay, so all these principles combine to give you a safer, more effective, more efficient workout and get the job done in a way that does not require as much wear and tear on the body, does not require as much total exercise, does not require as many different exercises in a workout. So you just bring all these things together and you're able to offer a program that accomplishes what we're after in just a much better way.
Yeah, beautiful. Listening to you there, I was like, God, this is just excellent for my own. I'm thinking when I articulate all this stuff to clients, like the way you put it there, in terms of the safety, the effectiveness, the efficiency, is so good and so helpful. I think lots of listeners just were scribbling down then to actually, think about how they articulate some of these things to new clients and existing clients. So no, I found that really useful, Tim. That was great. I think we should park it there. So for everyone listening, I have a laundry list of bullets. We covered 2, which is absolutely fine because I love going deeper on a bullet rather than just skipping over it. And we're going to get into so much cool stuff on this series. We're going to probably jump onto the next bullet will be, advantages and benefits of high intensity, slow motion strength training and getting more into that. We're going to be talking about how to manage exercise-induced headache. We're going to talk about time under load, time to concentric failure, optimal windows for time under load and time to concentric failure, and et cetera, et cetera. And that's just scratching the surface, Tim. So thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Can't wait to do part 2. I'm very sorry we have to leave it there. I mean, you and I could obviously talk about this for hours. And I know that some of our colleagues have been sending trainers to you to learn more about your way of doing things and obviously your experience in this space. And you've been obviously mentoring and doing workshops for a while. I know that's something that you're looking to promote more publicly now. And obviously I'd love to give you the opportunity to talk about what it is you're offering and also tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you to explore different offers you have around workshops and seminars and things like that.
Yeah. So, very quickly, over the years, I've become very heavily involved with educating instructors and personal trainers and certifying trainers and so forth, and providing workshops and seminars and different things and mentoring people. I mean, many people have come to me at my facility and spent time with me, learning and observing and being taught the equipment and the principles and things like that. And a lot of times I've gone to other people, and I've always done that in such a way where I didn't seek it out. I mean, people just heard of me from somewhere or knew me or got referred to me.
Like Arthur Jones and his machines.
Yeah, something. So, I mean, these people would just contact me and say, hey, I'm looking to learn how to be a trainer, or I'm new to this high intensity training, so whatever. I would just work with these people and do different things. And occasionally people would tell me to, ask me to come to their facility and do it for their staff. And, so I've just been pulled into this over the years without really trying. But now I've really, for various reasons that probably don't have time to get into, but I've really seen a need to offer this at a higher level and more intentionally promote my services in this area, because I really see a need out there for people to learn this and to be better educated about it, and even improve their skills with not only the training and coaching of clients, but also work with the equipment and the proper use of the equipment and things of that nature. So yes, I am really trying to now intentionally promote my services for this, make it known that I'm available for this. And this could consist of somebody coming to me, spending time, maybe spending a weekend at my facility or a couple days during the week or whatever, and doing different things and going through workshops with me and hands-on the equipment and all that. I can do that. I could be asked to come to somebody else's facility if somebody's got a staff of trainers. They want me to come to their facility and spend a weekend or spend a week or whatever and go through educational programs with their staff. This is all available. So it is something that I'm offering. It is something that can be customized for whatever a person's needs are. I mean, everybody's got different things. Trainers may be at different levels of development and so forth. So it can be completely customized to what the person's needs are. And we can kind of go from there. So to contact me through that, I mean, number one, there's ways of contacting me through my website for my personal training business, which is stronglifetraining.com. There's contact ways. There's a website, or not a website, an email address. You can contact me at info@stronglifetraining.com. And it's fine if you want to call me. My phone in the United States is area code 630-862-5176. So any of those methods are fine, and we can discuss what the needs might be and develop a program and an approach for what would help you out.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Tim. And all of those contact details will be in the blog post for this. And to find the blog post for this episode and get access to the How to Attract Great Personal Trainers to Your Strength Training Business PDF, please go to highintensitybusiness.com and search episode 352. So again, you'll get all the links to Tim's services as well as the show notes to the episode. And until next time, for everyone listening, thank you very much for listening. This episode is brought to you by ARX. You want to be a successful strength training studio owner. The problem is you aren't able to deliver the safest, most efficient and effective workouts, making it harder for you to attract and retain clients, which makes you feel frustrated. I understand that it can be difficult to differentiate your business without the right tools. ARX's breakthrough adaptive resistance technology uses patented motorized resistance and computer software to give you and your clients the perfect workout every single time. BioFit founder John Zarbok says that ARX is clearly the superior tool to deliver the exercise stimulus. My clients are seeing insane improvements in weeks, not months. I could not fathom running my business without ARX. So here's how you get started. Number one, go to arxfit.com/HIB to get $500 off your ARX machines. Number two, book a call with the ARX sales team. And number three, learn how ARX can help you grow your strength training business. Go to arxfit.com/HIB so you can stop struggling to attract and retain clients and start to grow your strength training business with confidence.